The reason that I don't go out and play in traffic on the interstate is not because I'm selfish. The reason that I don't go out and play in traffic on the interstate is because I affirm the value of my life and I don't want to end up on the bumper of a car or truck. The reason that I want to go to heaven is not because I'm crassly selfish. Rather, it's because I affirm the value of life. And if there is life after death, because I celebrate life and affirm the value of life, I am keenly interested in that eternal life. When you obey the Ten Commandments and experience the joy that comes from obeying the Ten Commandments, that is not sinful, crass selfishness. That is a wonderful affirmation in you of the value of life, and you realize that your life is enhanced by not murdering, by loving, by not committing adultery, by respecting a person's sexuality and respecting your own sexuality, by not coveting and be greedy. That's not selfishness on your part. That's a wonderful affirmation of life. And to tell you the truth, sir, a big reason that I obey Jesus is because I, too, want to experience the best life possible. Motivated by an affirmation of life, I am convinced that Jesus is wiser than I am when it comes to ethics, how I should live my life. And because I want the best life possible, I obey Jesus, because I affirm the value of life. Now, are you going to go to hell? When you follow your conscience, you know that at times you do wrong. And when you read the Torah, you know the whole sacrificial system was set up to point to the need for atonement for sin. Now, obviously, the claim of Christ is that he is making atonement for sin when he bleeds and dies on the cross. Now, obviously, the big question is, was he lying or was he speaking the truth? If he's speaking the truth, that he's really making atonement for sin, paying the penalty for sin by his death on the cross, then you and I must put our faith in him. But if he's blowing smoke, if he just dies as a martyr, we don't need to put our faith in him. That's why this issue of Jesus is so crucial, because of the nature of the extreme claims that he made. To be the Lamb of God, making atonement for sin through his death on a cross. Good gracious, if he's really who he says he is, you and I better worship him, trust him, and receive the gift of eternal life.
But the thing I wanted to know is, if you follow this Christ guy, like it says in the Great Commission or whatever,
Yes,
the Great
sir.
Commission,
Yes, sir.
to go out and make disciples of all nations, what exactly are disciples of Christ to do? Are we supposed to forsake everything that we own, family, homes, children, wives, just to follow and preach the gospel to people? Go out like he told his disciples in the gospel, you know, not owning anything, sell everything that we own, and just basically go around as homeless people, going from city to city, living off of donations and charity, preaching the gospel until the end of the world. Yeah, and just
out of garbage cans,
you know, and being homeless. Because if you read the Gospels, that's what he's basically telling you to do. Be a homeless person, give up this life, and your work, your whole work is the gospel, spreading of the gospel. And I don't see any place about collecting money, not working. Working, getting a wife, because he tells the disciples that in heaven you're going to be like the angels. And then the disciples say, hold up, wait a second, man. Now, what's the whole purpose of getting married anyway? If we're not going to be with these people out in the next life, then we might as well not get married in the first place. And so I'm just asking you, why isn't it the basic Christian teaching is to just give up this world, don't go to college, don't go out and get an education, just take that book, preach the gospel, and spread it throughout the world, because your life is only basically 70 years, but you're going to get eternity for sacrificing these 70 years here on the earth. And why marry and have kids when all they're doing is taking away from your time and being a disciple and spreading the word of Jesus Christ throughout the whole world? So I'm saying the whole point of being a Christian, you would end up being a homeless single man or female preaching the gospel, going from city to city, being castigated, being spoken down upon, being looked upon as a crazy person because you're speaking the word of Christ.
All right. But sir, the Gospels are real clear that the stereotype that you've pictured here for us very well is totally false. First of all, government. Matthew chapter 22. Then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. They sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians. Teacher, they said, we know that you're a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by men because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, "You hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax." They brought him a denarius, and he asked them, "Whose portrait is this, and whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. Then he said to them, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's." Not rebel against the government, not ignore the government.
Right.
Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. Jesus did not call for anarchy. He did not call for disrespect to the government. He called to behave as a responsible citizen
Of Rome?
under government. Second point.
Jesus, be a good Roman, right? Serve Caesar. That's right. That's
Okay,
funny, Cliff.
the thing that I'm
That's pretty
saying is-
funny, man.
No, now I'm going to answer you. You asked a lot of good questions, and if you interrupt me, I'm going to go to somebody else. I'll tell you right now. I listened to all of your questions you raised, which are very good, and I'm going to answer them one at a time. Your second point was, okay, fine. So we're just going to go around and serve Jesus and preach and give everything away. Time out. Read Luke chapter 10, the best-known parable of Jesus, the parable of the Good Samaritan. When the Good Samaritan came upon the Jew in a puddle of blood on the side of the road, he had compassion on that Jew. He got down, cleaned out the cuts, bandaged the wounds, and then what did he do? He picked the Jew up, put him on a donkey, and brought him to an inn. Then he took money out of his pocket and paid the innkeeper to take care of that bloodied Jew. In other words, the hero in Jesus' best-known parable, the parable of the Good Samaritan, was a man who had the financial resources to pay for the well-being, for the care of a beaten-up Jew. Next point. You're right. In Mark chapter 10, confronted by a man who had an idol, and that idol was his money. Jesus told him to give it all up and to follow him. But in Luke chapter 19, after eating with Zacchaeus, Zacchaeus stands up at the banquet with Jesus, looks everybody in the face and says, "Right now, I give half my possessions to the poor, and if I've cheated anybody out of anything, I pay him back 4 times the amount." And Jesus said, "I tell you the truth, today salvation has come to this house." Zacchaeus did not give it literally all up in a sense of totally divesting all of his savings. He did not do that. He gave 1/2, he divested 1/2 instantly, and he paid back anybody he cheated 4 times the amount. Jesus said salvation has come right now. So it is incredibly narrow-minded to take one incident out of Mark chapter 10 where Jesus tells one individual who obviously has his God as money and say what Jesus said to that one individual is normative for all of us. You must read in context.
That's right.
The next issue you brought up, you brought all these issues up, and I'm going to knock them off one at a time. The next issue you brought up was, oh fine, so we follow Jesus, we give up all our clothes and all our savings, and we just go around preaching the Bible. No. In 2 Thessalonians
I said just
chapter
within the gospel.
3, Paul writes very clearly, if a
I
man...
said only in the four
finish,
gospels.
man. The four Let him
Only the four
finish,
gospels.
man.
The word of Christ, not some
Let
guys
him
who come
finish,
years
man.
after.
As I was saying, in 2 Thessalonians
Come
chapter
on.
3, Paul writes, if a man will not work, he shall not eat. Jesus Christ and the entire Bible commend work.
That's right.
Now, you and I live in a culture that says there's a big difference between the secular and the sacred. If you're really close to Jesus, you're going to become a minister, a priest, a monk, or a nun. But when you take the time to read the Bible, you will notice that the greatest men and women of faith in the Bible were not priests, they were not ministers, they were not monks or nuns. Instead, they were political leaders like Daniel and Joseph.
That's right.
They were very successful business people like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Job. They had a profound faith in God, but they worked hard. When you go back to the book of Genesis, you read that God created us to work. God gave us rational minds. And when you put your faith in Christ, you don't drop out of UT. Instead, you study harder at UT because you have a new motive to study. No longer is your motive to get the highest paying job possible. Your motive is, God has given me a rational mind. He's put me in a position of responsibility to develop that rational mind so I can provide a better product, a better service to make this world a better place. That is the new motive when you put your faith in Christ. It is not simply to position yourself to make a higher salary. So, I know that you've heard that if you commit your life to Christ, you got to get out of university. That is totally false. When you put your faith in Christ, you understand God has given me gifts and opportunities. I need to use those responsibly to love God by loving and serving people. I have a brother who's 2 years younger than me. He's just as committed to Christ as I am. He's a transplant surgeon at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He's involved in genetic research, and he teaches at the med school there. He's just as committed to Christ as I am, but he understands God has given me the ability to do medicine, to do it well. I have another brother who's just as committed to Christ as I am. He's dean of a law school in Jacksonville, Florida, and he works with l'Arche, the community begun by Jean Vanier, the Frenchman, that works with handicapped people, that has homes around the world for severely handicapped, retarded people. My brother John is just as committed to Christ as I am. He's never preached. He's never spoken on a university campus. I have a sister who's a school teacher. She's just as committed to Christ as I am. She teaches fifth graders. Based on her faith in Christ, she's committed to intellectually developing fifth grade children. I, or my brother who transplants kidneys and livers, are not more successful, we're not more valuable than our brain-damaged sister. We are all seeking to use our abilities to serve Christ faithfully to the best of our abilities. That is a biblical view of work. That is a biblical view of life. Yes, sir, your response.
Okay. Now, this is the question I asked a Christian guy before who was trying to justify being in the military. I said, how can you serve in a military that trains you to kill people? That's the whole purpose of a military, right? And you can go and be a jet pilot, blow people up. Oh, I'm a Christian and a good American, right? But the whole point of Christ, but then these guys will put up an idol and say, worship this tin can because this is the God, doopity-doop or whatever. But you won't do that. But you won't do that, right? But then you'll go blow people up and kill people. And according to this James guy, no sin is, over the other one. And I'm asking, why is it that they can serve in militaries, claim to be Christians, serve worldly governments, which are all up under the rule and dominion of the God of this world, Satan, right? Because basically Jesus said, if you follow him, you're going to be evil spoken of, hated, right? For his name's sake, right? So how the heck are you going to be telling me that these governments are good and that all these Christians that are working to uphold these worldly governments and supporting worldly governments are doing the works of Christ? And what I'm saying is that what Christ teaches in the Gospels,
preaching the gospel,
basically, what he's teaching in the Gospels is totally different from what people are practicing and preaching to people. And another thing, why don't churches go around telling people not to get married? Because it seems to me most churches promote getting married. But according to Christ, you basically shouldn't get married. According to Christ, when he's speaking to his disciples,
for the nails for you,
he said, when you go to heaven, you will be as the angels. You will not be married anymore. People won't be married.
So what?
Right? So what's the purpose of being married on the earth?
Well, I don't think I'll be playing basketball in heaven, but I can still enjoy basketball now.
And then Paul tells you that those who are married care more for the world than they do for the things of Christ or whatever. When you're married, right? So you might as well not be married in the first place and just dedicated your whole life for Christ. But I don't see too many of these churches going out and preaching that.
You see, what you're doing is you are selectively taking one line, pulling it out of the text, and saying this is what the whole thing says. That is intellectually dishonest. You have to read in context. You're right. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, Paul says that singleness is a gift from God. But throughout the Bible, marriage is also pictured as a gift from God. And so, because I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, I'm going to communicate. If you feel called by God to be single, God bless you, live a single life. If you feel called by God to be married, God bless you, live a married life. It's that simple. Now, the question that you've gotten to really is this issue of Christians in the military. All right, now, that is an example of a very, very difficult ethical question. Why? The Bible reveals that God is just. He punishes evil. It also reveals that God is forgiving and patient with sinners like me. Some followers of Christ, emphasizing the justice of God, will serve in the armed forces. Why? In a passage like Genesis chapter 9, verse 6, we read, "If you shed the blood of man, by man your blood will be shed." They read a passage like Luke chapter 3, where soldiers come up to John the Baptist and ask, "What should we do?" And John the Baptist looks those soldiers in the face and says, "Don't extort money and don't accuse people falsely. Be content with your pay." John the Baptist did not call those soldiers to get out of the military. Some followers of Christ, emphasizing the justice of God, understand the government's responsibility is to stop the slaughter of innocent people. Therefore, I will fight in a war that is designed to prevent the slaughter of innocent people. I will not fight in a war that is designed to keep gas prices low at the pump. I will not kill another person for that reason. But if someone is slaughtering innocent people, in obedience to my government, I will fight in a just war.
And if you had a scientific question, you would go to a scientist, and I presume you would expect a rational answer. And if you had a philosophical question, you would go to a philosopher, and perhaps less rational but still cogent, you would expect an answer. I have a religious question, and I come to you as a religious man to answer it. Right here, right now, I'm not an atheist. I can't equip myself with moral relativism. I'm an agnostic, and I envy your faith. I want to know why I should believe it's more probable that there is a God than there isn't. You don't have to prove absolutely that there is one. I just want to know that it's more probable that there is than that there isn't, and I want you to show me.
Okay. Thanks for asking that honest question. I appreciate it. The reason that I believe that God exists is because of certain evidence. First piece of evidence, the order and the design of the cosmos points me to some type of intelligent mind, because my experience in life is, in order to bring about order, I got to work real hard. And when I get sick, I don't go running to a neophyte. When I get really sick, I go running to a highly, highly trained doctor who understands the order and design of the human body. My experience in life is order demands an intelligent mind behind it. It doesn't come about by chance. Second piece of evidence for me. Life, in my experience, always comes from life. I don't care if it's plant life, animal life, human life. You never get life out of non-life. In other words, you never get the animate from the inanimate. Therefore, is it more reasonable for me to believe in the beginning God, or is it more reasonable for me to believe in the beginning matter and energy? Because I only see life come from life, never life come from non-life, it's far more plausible, reasonable for me to believe in the beginning God. Third point, the moral argument. I think you've been standing here while I've been articulating it. I am convinced that although there are not many, there are at least a few moral absolutes. Although there's a lot of ethical gray, probably more ethical gray than ethical black and white, there at times is ethical black and white, crystal clear.
Moral absolute.
Moral absolute.
So those are the three reasons.
Those are three.
Order.
Order design, coming from intelligent mind. Life coming from life, not from non-life. Moral absolutes. Fourth one, love. My experience of life is that love is crucial to my marriage, my family, my friendships. Love is a crucial motive in my life. If it's lacking, life turns very sterile, very empty. The only way love can be real is if there is more to reality than matter and energy. There's got to be some type of God who creates us with this innate ability to genuinely love. If there is no God, the Duke University student was correct when he said, love is simply a biological drive to preserve the genetic pool. And I said, sir, do you really think that's what motivates Mother Teresa to work among the dying in Calcutta, India? He said, yes. I have a fundamental disagreement with that. My experience in life is, no. Mother Teresa was motivated by love for the dying in Calcutta, India. That's why she did what she did. Not motivated primarily by a drive to preserve the genetic pool. That's a fourth piece of evidence.
4.
Right.
You mind if I ask some questions about
Go right ahead.
order? I know a little about computers. Not a lot, but a little. And I know there are computer programs that write very complicated, very ordered programs that do things. Extremely ordered. But I would not go back and say that the program that wrote it is a life, or capable of love, or capable of thought in the way I think of thought. I have seen order that is caused by seemingly disorder or random occurrences. I've seen order that doesn't necessarily come from a cogent willed source. And I've seen order come from a cogent willed source that was very evil, or you would define evil. So, first of all, I would contend that I've seen, or I think I've seen order from chaos, and I know I've seen, or at least I like to think I've seen, order from what you would dictate as evil. So is it order from chaos? And if it's order only from order, why does that necessarily imply a good entity that created this order?
Okay, I have strong disagreements with one point, and I strongly agree with your second point. I think it's rather clear that a computer comes from an intelligent mind. I've never met a computer that just came about by accident. So that computer obviously was ordered by an intelligent mind. So there's no problem with computers. But I think you raise a tremendous issue when it comes to evil. I think you're absolutely correct. I think it's totally possible that this intelligent mind is a warped Scrooge.
Okay. What was the second reason now? Just to get it
Okay,
right.
second thing is life comes from life, not from non-life.
That one's harder for me. I'm not a biologist, but I know that there's a lot of theories that say that given the right materials, the right electric charge, so to speak, and the right atmosphere, we can create proteins, we can create enzymes, we can create complex molecules, and from that, this.
What creates consciousness?
Okay, and my point would be, I would not be shocked if scientists created life, because that's exactly what I believe. Intelligent mind creates life. My point is, you've got to have the intelligent mind there. You don't just have life coming out of non-life by accident.
You don't think it's possible, even remotely possible, even infinitesimally remotely possible, that in some primordial pool, a lightning strike struck a complex of molecules that created an enzyme that then allowed us to evolve into this over billions of years?
Anything is possible.
Possible.
Correct. Anything is possible.
But more probable for the God?
Exactly. You see, for me as a thinking human being, the question is, what is most plausible in light of the evidence?
Third point was?
Third point was moral absolutes.
I don't have a counter for that. Fourth?
Fourth point was love.
That I don't understand. And I'd really benefit if you could explain it to me.
Sure.
I don't understand what you mean by it. And I've never experienced what you're talking about. And I'm fairly happy with my life.
All right. What I'm talking about is, in the 60s, there was a riot at the Sorbonne, the French university in Paris. And a young man walked up to a bearded man and said, "Excuse me, sir, what are you rioting about?" The bearded man said, "I'm protesting this lousy world." The young man asked, "Do you believe in God?" The man said, "No, I'm an atheist." The young man asked, "Do you love anyone?" Bearded man lowered his head and said, "Yes, I love a woman by whom I've had a child, and she's dying of leukemia." Young man said, "Well, if she's dying of leukemia, why don't you ditch her and go out and get some other fox who turns you on a little more?" bearded man hauled back and almost hit the young guy. The young guy said, "Excuse me, sir, you said there is no God." Well, if there is no God, there is no innate human ability to genuinely care for somebody else. And if this woman is losing her ability to sexually excite you because her body's falling apart due to leukemia, why don't you go out and get some other fox who turns you on a little more? And then the young man pulled out a Gospel of John where we read that there is a God, and this God is love. And when he created you and me in his image, in his likeness, he placed within you and me the innate ability to love. So every atheist loves, every agnostic loves, every theist loves. Why? Because we're human beings, not machines. We're human beings created in the image and likeness of God.
Is that love the only emotion that God put in us, or are all of our emotions from God?
No, God gave us emotions, but due to our sin, we can twist those emotions. The classic example is anger. There's nothing wrong with anger. Confronted by evil, God is angry. Confronted by evil, I should be angry. That's moral indignation. That's righteous anger. But in my selfishness, in my sinfulness, I twist anger and I lose my temper with someone because they step in front of me at the line at the airport. Don't they know who they just stepped in front of? And so I explode in a selfish type of anger, and that's sinful.
We tie this with your creation ex nihilo argument, creation from nothing, a counter to it. Everything here from God. Was there anything before God? Was there any before God?
God is eternal, so there's nothing before God.
Everything from God.
No, not everything from God. Because God has given you and me gifts of creativity, obviously God did not make your jacket or eyeglasses. Obviously God did not build that building. And obviously if I go up to him and kick him in the jaw, that's not God kicking him in the jaw. Or if I go up to him and pull my wallet out and give him a dollar, it's not God giving him a dollar. So because God has given you and me gifts of creativity, we can create. And we do all the time.
So then, some things from God, some from man. Man used in a general sense, male, female.
Yeah, God's given us gifts of creativity.
And as far as the moral absolutes go, you say there's some. Okay, where do I find them?
Two places. First of all, you go to your conscience. And secondly, you ask, has God revealed a standard that I can measure my conscience against? Jesus Christ claimed that he was that standard, that his ethical teachings are that standard. You can find them in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5 through 7. You can find them in the 10 Commandments, Exodus 20.
My conscience, the first source.
First one, conscience, right.
That troubles me. My conscience guides my behavior very differently from what I would assume you would guide it as yourself.
That's right.
I'm extremely selfish and almost exclusively act in my own interest.
That's right.
That is how my conscience guides me.
Uh-huh. Well, I dare say, though, that occasionally you experience guilt. Maybe not often, but occasionally. My point is...
Really, guilt.
You've never experienced guilt?
Not guilt. I've regretted my actions in the sense that they didn't have the outcome I thought they were. They weren't as beneficial to me as I thought they would be. That's regret, but not guilt.
All right. Speaking for myself, at times I have experienced guilt, which means I am convinced that what I did was wrong.
Compared to something other than your conscience?
Well, all I know is I experience guilt. My conscience informs me of it.
And these four reasons that you've given, you feel, make it more probable that there is a God than that there isn't.
Correct. And then there's another one. Your agnosticism.
Okay?
It is an intellectual option to be an agnostic. It is a practical impossibility. Every day you have to make priorities. Every day you have to make ethical decisions. And your priorities in life and your ethical decisions in life show very clearly you're not agnostic. You believe something, you believe in someone. That has motivated you to set the priorities that you have. I obviously don't know what those are. What you believe in has obviously motivated you to invest your money the way you do, your time the way you do. So there are many people who can say, I'm agnostic, I don't know. But practically, the way you live your life shows that you believe something.
So then would it be more honest of me to say, practically, I believe in me?
And yes, Correct.
Then I may have misinterpreted agnosticism. I took it and have taken it to mean, I don't know what's there. I'm not going to make any decision about it. I'll listen to whoever has something to say and see what I think.
Right, and I think intellectually you can do that. But now, you have to go out and live your life. And the way you live your life shows whether you acknowledge God or not. See, that's the embarrassing thing about what we're talking about out here. The embarrassing thing about what we're talking about here is, it's not like, do you like black leather or brown leather jackets? Which is totally an issue of your own preference. Do you like Pepsi or Coke? Because you see, it really doesn't matter whether you like a brown leather jacket or a black leather jacket, whether you like Pepsi or Coke. Those are rather inconsequential issues. But the issue of God's existence is not along the lines of Pepsi and Coke, black and brown leather jackets. It's an issue that goes right to the heart of human existence, because it's an issue of what is the meaning and purpose of your life? Why do you live your life ethically the way you do? And what about life after death? Are you ever going to have to answer to anybody for the way you lived your life? You see, so due to the grievously serious nature of the issues that are all wrapped up in God's existence, although I can say, I don't know whether God exists or not, the way I live my life, the meaning I attach to my life, the ethical decisions I make in my life, Knechtle will tell you what I believe about reality.
I want to ask is like tattoos and piercings a sin?
Good question. In Leviticus we read, don't put tattoos on your body.
Is that the Old Testament?
Exactly, it's Leviticus. Now the question, you see, what you always got to do when you interpret, you got to put it in context. So the question is, why in Leviticus would it say that tattoos are bad? All you got to do is read Elijah on Mount Carmel, competing against the prophets of Baal. God sent fire. And the people of Israel are watching, and they're seeking to determine who's the real true living God, Baal or Yahweh. The prophets of Baal pray, Baal, send fire. Baal, send fire. Nothing happens. What do? They start cutting themselves. The blood begins to flow. Why? Because that culture, that religion taught, if you want to get God's attention, you start cutting yourself, let the blood flow, and then God will answer your prayers. Then God will give you his attention. That's false. And so very clearly in Leviticus, God is calling the Hebrew people to be different from all the cultures around them. And one example is tattoos, marking your body, cutting yourself. So I would argue that because that was for that culture and time, there is nothing wrong with tattoos, biblically. Similarly, in Leviticus it says, you are not to wear clothing made of different cloth. Now, why would they do something like that? I mean, what's the point? Well, the point is that in that day, there was polytheism, many gods, belief in many gods. And they would mix the gods. And what God is trying to do in the book of Leviticus for the Jews is tell them there's one God, not many. And so you're not going to mix everything together. And so therefore he says you only wear clothing of one cloth. But the second point is this. The priests did wear clothing of different cloth, linen and wool, and that's because they were priests, and they were set aside. Now, I don't know which one's the accurate explanation of why God says don't wear clothing with mixed cloth in it, okay? But you see, the point is, when you got something difficult in the Bible, and there are many difficult things in the Bible, you don't just say contradiction, big problem. Instead, you learn to study the context, the culture. So what's the point of the author? Let me give you one quick example. Genesis 1:1 says what? In the beginning, who? Gods?
God.
Gods?
God.
Real loud, brother.
God.
God. Right on, brother. You know, why? Why is he doing that? Oh, you see, Genesis has to answer the evolutionary question. Guess what? The author, Moses, is writing to some Jewish people poised on the border of the land of Canaan to go in and conquer it. Do you think those Jews are sitting in their tents saying, wow, give me a scientific explanation of how God created? No. It's the furthest thing from their heads. What they are faced with is there a one true living God, or are there many gods? Now, all you got to do is go to the Babylonian creation myth called the Enuma Elish. Do you know how many gods create the universe in the Enuma Elish? 9. Sun god, moon god, sky god, earth god. And Genesis 1 is saying, no, not 9 gods. In the beginning, one. One God creates the heavens and the earth. See, that's how you begin to understand Scripture better. Well, Cliff, I'm not a biblical scholar. You don't have to be, okay? Mark Twain said, it's not the parts of the Bible I don't understand that disturb me. It's parts of the Bible I do understand that disturb me. The Bible's real simple on the surface level. But if you're a university student and you're going to start asking hard questions, then you're going to have to study. And that's what you got to challenge people here to do. I couldn't believe earlier that woman back there was standing back there. She's gone now. But she was raining on me about the Bible, the Gospels are ahistorical. And I just simply asked her, fine, why do you say that? What's your evidence that they're not historical? She didn't answer me. Then she said, and there are a lot of contradictions in the Gospels. I said, fine, give me one. She said, well, I can't really remember one. And then she said, and there are a lot of Gospels that contradict Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And guess what? She's right. But just to make sure she's doing her homework, I asked her, really, would you please give me the name of one Gospel that contradicts Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? She couldn't do it. See, sir, that's not fair intellectually. If you're going to say something, understand why you're saying it, what's the evidence to support it.
But didn't they say, don't mark your body with like something of death? Right? Didn't it say that in the Bible?
In Leviticus, it says, don't put tattoos on your body.
Yeah, but it also said, like, right next to it said, don't mark your body with a sign of death.
Okay.
Didn't it say that?
It might. I can't remember, to tell you the truth. I don't know. But I do know it says very clearly no tattoos. So you're right, sir. A lot of guys come up to me and say, Cliff, does the Bible say we're not allowed to get tattoos? And I say, no. You've got to understand the context. And the context is the Canaanite religions, to get God's attention, you've not only tattooed, you cut yourself. And you let the blood flow, and that's the way you're going to convince God that you're really sincere. You're really genuine. And God says, no, you don't do it that way. With your heart, you talk to me. Sincerely, genuinely, honestly, talk to me. And I'm going to listen to you. You don't have to cut yourself to get my attention.
Did you say some stuff in the Bible is false?
No, there's nothing in the Bible that I have read that's false. Now,
what about the hair, the woman's hair
Yes.
not being weaved, men can't cut their hair and stuff?
Good.
What is that?
Okay, good. What is that? Do you know that several times Paul writes, greet one another with a holy kiss? Now, this is the second day Jeremiah's been out here, and Jeremiah was very positive to me yesterday. Do you think I have kissed Jeremiah yet? No. Okay. Why? Am I disobeying the Bible? No. I understand that when Paul is talking about a holy kiss, he's talking about love each other, respect each other. Now, in the culture of that day, men kissed each other. Jeremiah did not try to kiss me, and I did not try and kiss Jeremiah. Why? Because we live in a different culture. But I've got some other friends, maybe like Italian guys, and they've come up to me and they've planted a big kiss on my cheek. And I don't say, oh, that's gross, but I understand that's a cultural expression of love and respect. You got to learn to distinguish between culture, a particular expression of something, and the Bible. Every atheist friend of mine does good deeds. Every agnostic friend of mine does good deeds. Every Muslim friend of mine does good deeds. Every Buddhist friend of mine does good deeds. All of us as human beings at times do good. The question is why? My observation is it's because we human beings have a conscience, this innate moral indicator in us. Every atheist has a conscience. Every agnostic has a conscience. Every Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, Jew has a conscience. So all of us, by exercising our consciences and our rational minds, can understand there's a difference between good and evil, right and wrong. So then, Cliff, what have you been doing with a moral argument? What I've been doing, ma'am, is this. If there is no God, there is no mind prior to the human mind, be it Christian, Jew, atheist, whatever, who defines right and wrong. So it's obvious who defines right and wrong if there's no God. We do. And obviously means morality is relative, because you might define one right and wrong one way, he might define it another way, I might define it another way. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. You choose, he chooses, and I choose. It's all relative. And I'm saying you can't live that out consistently. Why? Because if someone hurts you badly enough, you're going to look them in the face and say, you should not have done that. You ought not to have done that. And when you use those two words, should and ought, you're appealing to our conscience, which informs us that there is an objective moral. And when you just cut me off at the knees, that was really bad. Not relatively bad. When you abused that innocent child, that was really bad. Not relatively bad. When you murdered that innocent person, that was really objectively evil, not relatively evil. See, that's the way all my atheist friends live their lives. They're very good people, my atheist friends. But what happens is there's a disconnect between their thinking and their lifestyle. And the disconnect is, with the top of my head, I think it's all relative morally. But the way I live my life is, if you steal my stock portfolio, really evil. Let me give you one more example. A lot of people like to say to me, Cliff, God is love, which means God doesn't judge anybody. Everything's cool. Doesn't matter what you do. Okay. Let's say someone murders your mom and dad. They're hauled into a court of law. The judge says, you murdered this woman's mom and dad. Goodbye, have a great life. What is that saying? That is saying that your mom and dad do not matter. See, an understanding of sin means you do matter. And if somebody hurts you badly, it's really wrong. Why? Because you really matter. Well, why do you really matter? Not because you're an arrogant twit. Because you're a human being created in the image of God.
But, sorry to interrupt.
No, go.
I don't believe my value comes from something that is like, that God gives me.
Right.
My value is what I place on myself. And you're saying, what if someone murdered my parents, right?
Yes.
That does not take away their value for their lives, you know? Like, them being dead is not invaluable, is what you're saying, right?
Okay, but why are you valuable?
Well, because I place value on myself.
Okay, what's wrong with this? I'm the greatest.
There's nothing wrong with that to me, but I mean,
But am I the greatest?
if you believe you are, then you are.
Okay, I disagree. I think that if I go to the top of this building and really genuinely believe I can step off and fly, I am going to have a rude awakening as soon as I step off that building. Because I'm out of touch with reality.
Believing that you're great just in it of yourself without having something like God place that value upon yourself. It's like you believe it, and you don't have to have something giving you that like value. You just believe it.
Okay, good, but think about what you're saying. There is no God who created me. My number came up in a Monte Carlo game, a crapshoot. I'm an accident. Which means, what's the difference between stepping on a cockroach versus stepping on you? Cockroach is an accident, you're an accident.
Yeah.
So, you can stand there and tell me all day long, I have value, I have value, I have value.
Just like that cockroach has value.
Do you make a distinction between me stepping on a cockroach and me stepping on you?
I guess just because it's me, and I mean, it's a cockroach, but that cockroach still has value.
Why don't you arrest people for killing cows and eating beef?
Because of Because we're humans and we place value upon them. Just like we place values on ourselves, we place value on animals.
So if an alien race comes and starts wiping us off out of the picture and eating us like hamburger, would you have a problem with that?
They don't value us. I mean, they're aliens. I can't place value into them that they don't have in us. I can't convince them that we have value. You know, they already think that.
We don't have innate value if there is no
That's why.
God. It's just something we've created in our heads.
Exactly.
Okay, so then please don't be so arrogant to tell me that if I want to dump on him with a racist attitude, that that's wrong. What do you mean? That's my choice. If I want to be racist towards him, that's my reality.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying
I know you're not saying that, but follow the line of thinking, which is, if my value is just constructed by me, and his value is just constructed by him, and if I say to be racist to him is cool, that's my choice. Don't tell me I'm wrong, because you just have your choice. I got my choice.
it's different though
I'm
because
gonna
you have
jump
I'm
in on
sorry.
this. You're like kind of going everywhere. You're not answering her question. So
No, that would be wrong.
no, like
I am
you're
getting
saying-
to the root of the question, which is, why is right right, and why is wrong wrong? And I'm using different illustration, be it the cockroach and her, be it my racist attitude towards this gentleman, and she's maintaining consistently, and I respect your intellectual consistency. It's all just a matter of choice. Well, if it's all just a matter of choice, then if you step on a cockroach or if you step on her, I'm going to arrest you for both, and I'm going to try and
Okay.
have you held accountable for that, because that's my choice.
But you're kind of taking it away from the human aspect of it and
What does
putting
that
it
mean?
more on
The human aspect.
So
What's the
you're
difference
looking
between a
back at
human
her.
aspect and a cockroach aspect?
So bring your attention back to me.
I am. I'm answering you head up, head to head.
What was the original
Eye contact,
question?
like-
What was your original question?
Why do you have to have God in your life to be a good person?
And I told you. What did I tell you first? You do not have to believe in God to be a good person. Remember, I told you all of my atheist friends do good things. I told you everybody does good things. In fact, I know that Adolf Hitler did good things because my dad was a little Boy Scout in Switzerland. And Adolf Hitler was coming through the Alps, and my dad met Adolf Hitler. And Adolf Hitler didn't slap my dad around. Adolf Hitler complimented my father for being in the Swiss Boy Scouts.
You say that everyone does good things, but that doesn't necessarily make them good people.
No, I didn't say that.
Because I asked, why do you need God to be a good person? And then you said everyone does good
Can
things.
do good.
Yes.
So, and then I went on to explain. But if there is no God, good person is a totally relative category. What does that mean? It means goodness is a taste. Like, do you like the taste of corn or do you like the taste of beans? It's just a prejudice, just a taste. Culturally influenced, environmentally influenced, genetically influenced, whatever. It's just a taste. And I'm standing here saying you can't live that out because you know that to step on a cockroach is radically different from stepping on a baby. Because a human being has value, not because I happen to be a human being,
Right.
not because I give that baby value. False. That baby has innate, intrinsic, exactly, intrinsic value. Why? Because they're not pond scum evolved to a higher order. They're a human being created by God for a purpose, to love Him and to love each other.
And you're saying that I'm placing relative goodness into people, right? Like my term of goodness, because I don't believe in God, is relative. But you're saying that because of God, we have innate value. That's what you're saying.
Because He created us for a purpose,
Right.
correct.
So when you're saying because God created people, and because that's why they have values, because they created
They were
them.
created for a purpose.
Now you're saying that this God is like the status, right? He's what makes people good. But as humans, you can't really like know what God is thinking, right? So who's using that value? Who's saying, oh, like this is what's good and this is what's not good? It's the people in power, in religious power, because they're the ones interpreting God.
Really? Okay, these two guys believe in Jesus Christ, not because of people in power in religious institutions. If these two guys believed in Jesus Christ because of powerful religious people, they'd be idiots. Because you know very well in this culture what religious institutions have done to people of African American heritage. These two brothers believe in Jesus Christ because they had the intellectual honesty to refuse to allow a white Christian racist or church or institution to turn them off to the true Jesus who did not have a racist bone in his body, who in his first sermon in Luke 4 took a pot shot at racism and almost was killed for it. And so they don't allow white supremacists who call themselves Christians to turn them off to the true Jesus who did not have a racist bone in his body. Does that make any sense?
That makes total sense. And I
Good.
mean, I applaud you guys for your faith and stuff. But that's not my question. My question is, who decides what's good and right? If God is deciding it, right? But as humans, who's interpreting what's good and right? Like, who's
You
doing
bet.
that?
And remember, let's go reel it back. I told you first point, human conscience. I told you that all of my atheist friends, all of my Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim friends, all of my Christian, Jewish friends have consciences. Conscience is the innate moral ability to distinguish between good and evil, right and wrong. That's why we all experience guilt at some point. Because we have a conscience that says, Cliff, when you had that racist attitude towards Jeremiah, that was evil. That was wrong. And that's why I got to turn to Jeremiah and say, please, Jeremiah, would you forgive me for my racist attitude? So conscience is the first reason. Second of all, you've got to then ask the second question, well, what's the basis of conscience? Is it just environment influencing you? Cultural influences? And if it is just environment, if it is just culture, then it's totally relative. Because if my culture tells me that I am superior because I'm white and he's inferior because he's black, it's my culture. So who are you to come from somewhere outside my culture and tell me that my racist attitude towards him is wrong? It's all relative. But if there is a God who created him in his image, if there is a God who gives him an innate value, and if there is a God who created me for a purpose to love and respect Jeremiah, not to degrade him, then my racist attitude is not wrong because of my culture or his culture or your culture. It's wrong because he has an innate value that comes from his creator. Does that make any sense?
That makes sense.
It's been an honor to talk with you. I like your persistence.
Okay. Thank you. You too.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
going back to conscience, are you saying God's your conscience?
No. God is not the conscience. The conscience is an innate ability that you have to say, that's right and that's wrong. It's tied into your rational.
So basically science. You know?
No. Clear illustration for you, okay? Science tells me that if I put strychnine in my grandma's tea, it will kill her. That's science. Does science answer the question, in light of how much money my grandma has, should I put strychnine in her tea in order to kill her to get her money, or should I not? Does science answer that question? No. Now we are moving from science to philosophy and ethics. The question, should I put strychnine in grandma's tea in order to kill her to get her money? That is not a scientific question. That is an ethical, philosophical question, a spiritual question. Does that make any sense?
Not really.
You really think science answers the question, should I put strychnine in my grandma's tea to get her money?
Isn't that just conscience like you were talking about? That's just
Well,
you
how does
thinking
science
about
answer that? What does science tell me to do?
Just your brain, like
Yeah.
the way you think. You know, that's just
Clearly
you
said
thinking.
what conscience is.
Bro, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
Like, can you not? I'm talking to the
answer your own
pastor.
Ma'am, I hate to tell you, science cannot answer the question, should you love her or hate her? Science does answer the question. You take out a knife and stick it in her, and she bleeds. She might bleed to death. Yes, that's obvious. That's a physical, material, scientific question. It includes, obviously, medical knowledge. Okay? But the question, should you stick a knife in her or not? It's not a scientific question, guys. And that's why when you say, I live for science, you can't live it out. You can't. Should you pay your taxes or not? Science doesn't tell you.
So why, like, you're saying, okay, God, this, and that, and they believe that too, but a religious person, I don't know. So I'm a little confused on where, like,
Okay,
where
good.
you're going with that.
Good. It's real simple. See if I can express it. God gave me a conscience, but he also gave me a free will. And God has said, I am not to stick him with a knife and murder him. But because I have a free will, I can descend to the position of saying, I'm going to murder you. Bam. That's not because of God. It's not because of conscience. It's because of my free will, my choosing to sear my conscience and knife him instead of love and respect him the way God created me to love and respect him. But now what Jesus says is, Cliff, you're free to knife him. Guess what? You're not free to escape the day of judgment, when the all-knowing God will hold you responsible for sticking a knife in him. And that's why I need Jesus Christ. Because no, I haven't knifed people, but I have hated people. No, I've never stolen a bunch of money from a bank, but I have been greedy. So I need forgiveness because I've done wrong. And my conscience convicts me by guilt. And I say, whoa, what did I do to that person? That was wrong. And I can self-reflect. I can know myself. I can judge myself, critique myself.
Right. And that's like really good. And so what I think about religion is that it's good for people who need it to be able to reflect upon themselves. You know, like I think that people should be able to do that, but some people can't without having religion. So that's how I say.
I mean,
sometimes gotta skank around.
I mean, I am.
And you've heard loud and clear, I hope, what I've said to you, which is, you can do good, be you atheist, agnostic, whatever, Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, Jew. But if you're an atheist, you cannot say they're objective morals. Instead, you got to say they're subjective morals, relative morality. See, I could never use this argument with a Muslim, because a Muslim and I agree. There are objective morals that come from God, from Allah. So with a Muslim, this is not part of the discussion. Rather, it is part of the discussion when I'm talking to agnostics or atheists. Because remember I told you, all of my atheist friends do very good things at times.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah, you said it doesn't align with their thinking.
Correct. And if I have a thinking, a worldview, that is majorly contradicted by the way I experience life, see what I'm trying to do with you? I'm trying to say, okay, you can't live out what you believe. Should you not go back and re-examine what you believe? Because such a big part of reality, your conscience, your understanding that there are some objective morals, maybe not many, but the abuse of an innocent child would be an example that that's never, ever good. That demands there to be human value that's real and objective, not just because I'm great or, I'm the best. I've been created by God and given value by God. Therefore, for me to abuse an innocent child is absolutely wrong.
So is it being an atheist that gives that gap, or is it just that person that has that gap of like following what their morals are? Because I have my morals and I stick by them.
Good.
Is it being an atheist that makes them that makes them have that gap between their moral and their living their life?
Okay.
Or is it just that person in itself?
Okay, now, what I'm pleading with you is, I respect you living good life. I respect you for having moral standards that you do not compromise. Awesome. Now, allow your conviction, and you got a conviction. If you're not going to sacrifice your morals and compromise them, you know that you got some convictions. Don't you think that those convictions are tying you into reality? That there are some moral absolutes, and you hold very tightly to them. And so what I'm suggesting is, now you got to take a second step, which is, why? Why are those morals real and objective? There's only one way they can be real and objective. Is if there is some mind prior to the human mind who creates and defines them and who gives people real value, and therefore you better not devalue them, you better respect them. Does that make any sense?
That makes sense.
I think everyone here would kind of agree that people that know what's up survive better. Do you disagree with that?
1948, Shirley Jackson wrote a short story called The Lottery. The New Yorker magazine published the story. The Lottery is a fictional work. It's about a town in the United States that doesn't exist in reality. It's fiction. But they have a tradition. Every spring, they held a lottery. And the point of the lottery is to single out one person in the 300 people population of this town to execute. Why? Because they believe that executing a person every spring leads to success of growth of crops. So Shirley Jackson writes this short story, and a family picks the paper with a dot on it. And then there are 5 members in the family, so they are handed 5 pieces of paper, and the mother, the young mother, picks the paper with a dot on it. And the children and the adults pick up stones to stone the woman to death. Now, when Shirley Jackson first published that in the New Yorker, people were outraged. How could you think that something like that is possible to be good? But today, due to cultural relativism, more and more people are saying, well, there's nothing wrong with that. That's your culture. And you go right ahead. Now, Jesus Christ says no. Jesus Christ says that God created all human beings with innate value. And to have a lottery where you choose one person to die in order to help crops produce more is wrong. It's evil. So, what do you think? Is morality relative? Do I just create my own right and wrong? Does Shirley Jackson just create her own right and wrong?
So I believe in God.
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that it's provable based on all of the factors that exist in the world around us, right?
Yeah.
I think it's reasonable to believe in an external force that created everything. That's very reasonable.
Good.
It's not for sure. It's not 100% because everything could just line up that there is God and there's just not, right? It could just be all randomness that,
maybe
came in one way, right?
Maybe.
But it's most likely God. in my
Good.
opinion, right?
The evidence points to
The
God.
evidence points to God.
Some type of God.
Right. And so if there is a God,
Yes.
ultimately there's a will, right?
Good.
And if there's a will, then there's ultimately a right and wrong.
Good.
So if you're following that, then it doesn't matter anything else.
Great.
That's pretty much it, right? Like,
Jesus Christ claimed that he bled and died on a cross to pay the penalty that I deserve for my abuse of my will. So the question is, am I willing to turn to Christ for forgiveness and receive that forgiveness, his grace? Or am I going to rationalize my wrong or blame somebody else?
as long as you understand that what you did is wrong fundamentally, you can forgive yourself.
Okay, how has God revealed to you what is fundamentally wrong?
Well, God hasn't revealed anything to me about what's right and wrong. God is mysterious, all these types of things.
Okay.
I figured it out through human means.
Okay. Okay, what happens if I'm not as smart as you? So I don't understand what right and wrong is.
You're an ignorant person,
right?
Sure, it's great to follow like a strong moral code like religion, right? It's great. That's an easy way to get it done. That's not the only way to get it done. That's not the only way to get it done.
No, I know it's not the only way.
So
I'm just trying to find out how you do it.
I could do it by, I listen to smart people around me that I think are good people.
Okay.
I
Good.
learn. I do my best, right?
So you use your reason.
Yeah.
Now, is it more reasonable to think that your reason comes from a rational being, or is it more reasonable to believe that your reason comes from matter?
I think both are reasonable. I think both.
You think it's reasonable to think that human rational power comes from inanimate matter?
Correct. Yeah. Carbons, everything put together is basically what makes you reason a certain way. Yeah.
Okay, I disagree.
You're mischaracterizing the argument.
Oh, no, I'm not mischaracterizing the argument. No, it's false.
Like, seriously.
You get nervous because you're beginning to realize, this Christianity is making a little bit too much sense for me.
Come on, bro. Listen to me for 1 second, all
No,
right?
he interrupted, okay? I'll listen to you all day long.
So
but he interrupted.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
Okay,
no worries.
so go ahead. You got the floor.
So God created matter, correct?
Yes, God created matter.
So why is God not creating matter that creates humans, that creates their reasoning?
Because matter cannot create. Either we come from matter or we come from mind. And in light of the fact that we have minds, and in light of the fact that we have the ability to love, I think it's real clear that there's more to reality than just matter. There's got to be some type of personal being who creates us.
You're putting it as matter versus being, whereas matter and being to me are the same thing.
All right. So I don't know well, what do you think about Jesus Christ?
He's a great guy. He's chill.
He's chill. Okay, but he said if you and I believe in him, we go to heaven, and if we reject him, we go to hell. Is that a chill guy?
I would say that he's wrong about that.
He's wrong about that. Okay. So how do you determine when Christ is right and when Christ is wrong?
I think that you come up with it yourself. You don't just blindly
come up with it yourself. Okay. Now, speaking for myself, in spite of the fact that I went to Davidson College, I am blinded by my arrogance and my rebellion against God, according to Christ. And I need God's intervention, otherwise I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. And guess what? My experience backs that up. I've tried to do good, and instead of doing the good that I wanted to do, I did the opposite. I am one confused person. And guess what? Part of the reason I feel so comfortable expressing that is because you're no different from me.
Exactly.
As Solzhenitsyn points out, the line separating good from evil runs through every human heart.
You have to recognize that every decision is, two sides of the same coin kind of thing, What
does that mean?
Like, the way you live your life, right? I'm walking around, I'm going to school.
Right.
I could be using that to get smarter, to get an advantage in the world, right? Whatever.
Right.
I can use that for good or evil. I can do a lot of good.
Yes.
I can help people.
Yes.
Or I can take advantage of people. I can,
Yes.
all these types of things, right? I can do whatever I want, basically, right?
Yep.
So it's like, when you have that type of power and ability, you have to, recognize that you have a choice. You have like a, it's not a morality-less thing. There's nothing that is absent of morality. Like, you have to be focused on morality in ethics when it comes down to anything you pursue.
Good. Very good. But what do you think about Jesus rising from the dead? Doesn't that point to his credibility? Doesn't that point to the trustworthiness of
That's a little bit
Christ?
silly to me. That's a little bit silly.
Okay, why is it silly that Christ rose from the dead?
So I can see it being a metaphor.
Why is it silly?
I think so to me, I rely on what makes sense in terms of what have I experienced in my life, what could be possible, right?
Have you ever experienced God?
I've never seen someone rise from the dead.
Have you ever seen God?
I've never seen anyone rise from the dead.
Have you ever seen God?
I've never seen God.
I've never seen God either. Then why do you and I believe God exists?
Because it's reasonable.
It's reasonable. Why is it reasonable?
It's reasonable based on the world around us.
Based on what about the world around us?
Based on the matter, it's based on the people, it's based on all the relationships between everything in the world. It makes sense that there's God.
I believe in God because the existence of meaning and purpose in life necessitates God.
Yeah, you're doing the classic, what's it called, argument? The who's the philosopher?
No, think with me. Don't just stereotype me as a classical philosopher.
I'm saying,
come on, think with me. If you and I agree God exists, some type of God exists, who is God? What is God like?
I would say, so you talk about omniscience, you talk about omnipotence, right?
Yeah.
Those are the characteristics of a God, right? Of God.
Okay.
So when you have those characteristics, what would you look like? What would you be, right? You would probably be extremely arrogant. Extremely arrogant.
Yes.
Because nothing can stop you.
Yes.
Right? So that arrogance would lead you to do some things that maybe aren't the best things to do.
Good.
So God doesn't follow morality. God creates morality.
You're brilliant. I'll tell you why. God should be arrogant, and instead of being arrogant, God humbles himself, becomes a human being, is born as a baby, laid in a manger, comes through the birth canal of Mary. What incredible self-humiliation.
Yeah, exactly.
That is exactly why you should read the Gospels, why we all should read the Gospels, to figure out.
All
right, man. Good to talk with you. Take care.
Either God has a reason for doing something, or he hasn't. That reason can be good or bad, but the thing is that if God has another reason, there is an ulterior thing to God, which is good. So we should turn that to good and not to God.
All right. So, according to a biblical worldview, according to a worldview that Jesus posited, God is eternal. God's character throughout eternity has been good. That is why God is not judged by goodness. Instead, goodness is part of God's character, who God has been throughout eternity. Does that make any sense?
No, you're saying that good cannot be outside of God because you're defining God as good. But that's your definition. The thing is that I can say, for example, if God right now, what you're actually saying is that whatever God decides is what is good. That argument was made by philosopher Leibniz, who said that we live in the best of both, in the best of any system of worlds, because if God is omnipotent and omnibenevolent,
right,
then everything that happens must be for the best. And for example, my grandma having cancer, if that happens, it's because in the future something better is going to happen.
That's not what Jesus taught, but maybe your grandma taught you that, but that's not what Jesus taught.
Okay, so if God is omnipotent and omnibenevolent,
yeah,
how is it that evil exists in the world?
Very simple. God is all-powerful. God chose to limit his power by creating us with a free will. Love, in order to be real, must be free. If it ain't free, if it's paid for, if it's manipulated, it's not love.
No, the thing is that either God has a reason for choosing to make us free, or He hasn't.
Yeah, love.
Okay,
Love.
Okay, so love is the outer reason.
In order for love to be love, it's got to be free.
Okay, so
If
love.
it's bought, forced, or manipulated, it ain't love.
So love is the outer reason and not God. Why should we turn to God and not to love?
God is love, and God really loves.
Okay, so
Different from your definition.
yeah, sure.
All right.
The thing is that
We'll
we can
disagree on the definition.
Of course.
I insist love is a free choice to work for the well-being of somebody else. You don't have to do it. You're not being coerced. You're not being manipulated. Instead, you freely choose to forgive someone who's hurt you, to give, to sacrifice for the well-being of someone else. And that's exactly what Christ revealed most clearly by sacrificing his life on a cross in order to forgive. Forgiveness is free. And I have to freely accept that forgiveness in order to be reconciled to God. That's what Jesus claimed.
The issue of like suffering, you gave the example of cancer. I think I had talked to you about this briefly yesterday. And you gave the answer free will, which even if I agree with that explanation, right? It's like you don't choose to get cancer. There are certain diseases, natural disasters, stuff like that that don't seem to be a product of free will. So how do you explain that?
The Bible insists God is good. He created us with a free will. We rebelled against him, and unfairness and injustice filled the gap. So in order to have a philosophy or a religion that's worthy of your belief, you had better be able to think through good and evil, the randomness of evil. Is it really wrong or is it not really wrong? And Jesus Christ says, life is a gift from God, but it has been totally perverted by sin, by human rebellion against God. And that is why this earth is cursed. It's unfair because we've told God to remove his act elsewhere. He honored our request. He took a step back from planet Earth and chaos erupted. So you're right. There's a lot of good in this life and there's a lot of trash coming right down the pike and it's going to hit you and me right in the face.
We basically told God to back off and that allowed for natural disasters to come in.
When I tell God to get out of my life, there are consequences. Chaos.
This happens to people who are religiously devout, who ostensibly have not told God to get out of their life in the way someone else might have, right?
That's the main point of the book of Job. Job was a very righteous guy. Life was unfair to Job. Job got run over.
Whether or not you tell God to get in or out of your life has no bearing on whether or not you're going to experience, cancer or natural disaster.
There are incredible consequences to racism, to hatred, to sexism, to date rape, to families being split open by divorce. Incredible consequences that go down through the generations. And so that's exactly what the Bible teaches. If you think that all that you do is just between you and one other person, you are really out to lunch.
So I gotta get going to class, but I guess one last clarifying question then. So are you saying that like the evil or natural disasters or impersonal afflictions that we see today that may even affect people who believe in the Word of God and Jesus are the result of everybody else who chooses not to believe?
I'm saying we are born into a world that has been cursed because human beings flipped God off, told God to get lost. Okay. Unfairness and chaos entered the gap.
Then you are I guess you are placing the blame there, and we might just disagree on that. But I gotta get going. I appreciate it.
Good to see you again. Take care.
That is the single greatest contradiction of religion. Okay, is that you're absolving yourself of responsibility, but at the same time you're acknowledging your own, like you're forgiving yourself, right? Or seeking forgiveness. That's the greatest contradiction in the world. Okay, when you say, "Oh, it doesn't matter that I did wrong. I'm okay. I learned from it. I'm great. I'm better." And you're also saying, I did something terrible. That is a contradiction fundamentally. And that is the greatest truth, okay? Nothing else. That is what builds all of religion, is I have to be better, but I can't be bogged down by what I just did, right?
And I see way more healing when you understand the God of the universe shown through Jesus Christ, who offered us complete forgiveness, who became a human being and got down in our mess and was the greatest counselor we get in Isaiah. he empathized, and you need a human being to empathize with you. It can't just be a philosophical principle in order to really find healing, do you not?
It's connection. Yeah, that's what it is, fundamentally. You have to make sense of that to be happy. I can agree with that. And religion is a very easy way to make sense of that.
I'm not for religion. I am against religion.
Religion is an easy way.
I am not out here talking about religion.
Okay.
I could care less. See, that's the problem on this campus. Truth is connected to beauty. Here, what is the most beautiful religion? That is truth. What can I gain from religion? It's like Brad Pitt talked about. Become religious if it helps you. I am not talking about that. I am not selling a type of mental health therapeutic approach by giving you religion. I want to talk about, certainly there's beauties within it, but just because it's beautiful doesn't make it true. Don't come to the Christian faith just because it works or it's beautiful. Come to it because it's either intellectually credible or not.
How do you
Verify or falsify.
How do you deal with the unverifiability of like the majority of the claims made by Christianity?
Or at least that's faith, right? Very simple. No, it's not just faith. 1 Corinthians 15, he says, if Jesus Christ is not risen from the dead, my faith is in the toilet. But if Christ has risen from the dead, faith in him is good faith. The legitimacy of faith is not determined by its sincerity. It's determined by the reliability of the object that you're putting your faith in. And so the New Testament's whole argument is Jesus Christ is reliable. That is why putting your faith in him is a wise decision.
We have knowledge about, from these manuscripts, most of them written like that actually 200 to 300 years. The ones that we still have, there's fragments from like 97, I think, of I forget which of the Gospels, but it's a testament from there.
Gospel of John, chapter 18, John Rylands Museum, Manchester, England.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed by that. That was a nice one. I like that.
Yeah. But we're not just being asked to put our faith in this person or the things this person said. You're asking, well, not you, but like Christianity asks people to put their faith in the idea that they were capable of doing these supernatural things without ever having witnessed it for ourselves, or like I don't know, because everyone makes these supernatural claims, right? Like there's supernatural claims in Hinduism and Buddhism and Judaism. What makes these supernatural claims superior to the other supernatural claims?
It all comes down to the trustworthiness of Jesus Christ. So then the question is Jesus trustworthy or is he not? And I would argue the historical evidence of the way he treated people, the content of his ethical teaching. You read the Sermon on the Mount and you are confronted by ethical genius. Thirdly, the way he died, offering forgiveness to his enemies. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, in spite of the fact that they nailed him to a wooden crossbeam. But fourthly, and most importantly, 3 days after he dies, he rises from the dead, and over a period of 40 days, he appears to over 500 people who see him. Different times, different places, not a mass hallucination. Different times, different places, over 500 people see Christ risen from the dead.
These eyewitnesses, did any of them write their own texts, or are they all just attested as having existed from other compiled texts in the New Testament? Which it's really difficult to argue that they're not compiled. There's at least, is it 2 Gospels that are clearly just kind of yoinked right out of is it Luke and Matthew, or taken out of Mark? I forget. It all gets mixed.
Mark was probably the first gospel. You're right.
Right. And then they compile it from different sources. So these we're hearing these things. Right. We're hearing these things, filtered through this centuries-long game of telephone, which has become even more complex as it's been taken by political powers over time, who have made sorts of concerted revisions to these texts.
You've been reading Dan Brown too much, buddy. It's false. That is not how we have the New Testament. Matthew, Mark, and John were eyewitnesses. So was Peter. And they wrote an eyewitness account of Jesus of Nazareth. And we have it in Greek, and we have a plethora of manuscripts. Are there variants in those manuscripts? Yes, there are. But those variants are so small that it doesn't change anything in terms of the message. And when Dr. Bart Ehrman, who teaches here, says that if the Bible is the inspired word of God, then God must make sure that there are no manuscript variants. That is tragic. Because the Bible never says, Jesus never says, that, oh, by the way, there are going to be no manuscript variants. No. Baloney.
The core Buddhist canon accepted by both Theravadins and Mahayanans. I guess the Vajrayana people like them as well. They do a lot of weird stuff.
Wait a second.
They're transferred from an even greater antiquity.
You think the teachings of Buddha are a historical narrative?
There's the historical narrative of the Buddha's life, which has been transferred in the Tripitaka. But you're right if your point is that the majority of it is like a philosophical teaching. Yeah.
Buddhism is a philosophy. Buddhism is not based on an individual. If you take Siddhartha Gautama Buddha out of Buddhism, Buddhism still hangs together. You take Jesus Christ out of Christianity, and the whole thing falls apart. Jesus Christ is claiming to be God in human form, revealing himself in a way that you and I, with our limited, finite minds, can begin to understand. The dude is either a candidate for a mental hospital, or he spoke the truth. Jesus lived the supreme human life. He could look into his faces of his enemies in John chapter 8 and say, hey guys, which one of you can prove me guilty of sin? And they were silent. He lived an amazing life.
I agree.
And then he claimed to be God in human form, which either means he's a nut job, or he's the truth.
Or he's God.
Or he's God. This whole middle ground. Oh, Jesus was a cool dude, great teacher, fantastic philosopher. Sorry, that's intellectual suicide. Why? Because although he lived a great life, he claimed to be God. That's why he was nailed to a cross.
Are you telling me you can't think of an example of a smart person who experiences like something like a manic episode?
Yeah. The people that I know who claim to be God are in mental hospitals.
And so are they God or are they crazy?
They're crazy.
Okay. And this guy's not crazy. This guy
Jesus is not crazy. That's right.
So I often hear this argument from proponents of intelligent design, like, all of these things we're created and given. Why do we have an appendix then? Why do we have vestigial structures, and why do we see so many vestigial or openly structures which are actively deleterious to an organism?
Yes.
Why do we see them arise?
Right. We human beings flipped God off, and he honored our request to get lost. He steps back from planet Earth, and chaos erupts. Genetic breakdown occurs, and all hell breaks loose.
I've never heard anyone take the problem of evil and try and incorporate it with intelligent design in that way. That's an interesting way of looking at it. So you're saying the original sin, humans leaving the Garden of Eden, resulted in this sort of stuff we see. So perhaps that explains an appendix in humans. How does that work with any other life form that has a vestigial organ? Why did our swift action in the Garden of Eden, why would that have any effect on the genetic makeup of any other creature?
Because when you tell the Creator to get out of your life, and when he honors your request and takes a step back, chaos follows.
I'm not seeing the biological portion of this argument. I can understand why it's a challenge to the question of evil, allowing whatever to happen allows us to choose to love God or not.
Please, I'll say it one more time. Because he honors your request, respecting your free will, and steps back because you told him to get lost, there are horrible consequences in the area of spirituality, emotions, intellect, and physical body.
Religious populations should show less, genetic,
Only.
Oh wait, no, that wouldn't make any sense. Right. They've all got original sin.
Only if God revealed that if you believe in me, I will give you a comfortable life. The opposite is true. If you believe in Christ, it's hard to follow Christ. It's a delight, it's a joy, but at times it is really hard.
I have one from Leviticus, and God is instructing people to stone if they mess up. So if someone murders, then they must be killed as well. what is your perspective on that? Because personally, I'm not a fan of seeing God as a wrathful God.
Right.
But Leviticus and all of these verses makes him out to be one.
Okay. Genesis chapter 3 records how human beings rebelled against God. God called a man named Abraham to begin the Jewish nation through which he would bring Messiah. Now, the Jews were messed up people, and they were surrounded by messed up cultures. So the Jews had a messed up culture, all the cultures around them, the Philistines, the Hittites, the Egyptians, pretty messed up cultures. And so God in Leviticus is calling the Jewish people to be separate from that evil. Now, that was one tricky situation. There's no police. So how do you handle a rebellious child? There is rape that goes on. So how do you handle the victim of rape? Pretty difficult situation, especially in light of the fact that there are no social services. This is a nomadic people, and there's real poverty. So what you have in Leviticus is, you've got God not setting them perfect, but he's pulling them out of a lot of grotesque habits, and that's why he deals with slavery in Exodus and Leviticus the way he does.